But what makes a loved place? So I was the lead researcher for the Night Soul of the Community project, which was a project that was powered by the Gallup organization. We used Gallup. It was a 3-year, 43,000 people, 26 city research experiment where we were trying to figure out what makes people love where they live and why does it matter. Knight Foundation, if you're not familiar, is a place-based foundation. And so they had been making long-term investments in 26 cities to the tune of, well over 100, I think they're at $1 billion now that they've given to these places. And then around 2008, they were like, do places still matter? Are places still things? Or has technology kind of blurred the lines? So one place is as good as another. All rural places are the same and urban places, or is there a difference? And if there is, and there's things that we attach to about our place, so what? Is it touchy-feely, kumbaya? We can all feel real good about that, but it doesn't really matter in the big scheme of things. Or is there something going on here? And so the Night Soul of the Community project first started to try to unpack this very important concept of resident attachment. Now, when I talk about love of place, when I talk about the thing that I think makes the difference between communities that just seem to get it done and communities that struggle with the same assets and the same resources, this to me represents the next frontier in community practice. How well are residents connected to their place? And we would measure, see, the other thing you have to understand is that those of us who do this work cannot keep saying, well, it's hard to measure, it's real touchy-feely, you know it. No. You have to know that what you're saying when I'm talking to a mayor or a CEO or someone, that I can say, and we can measure it in your population. We have to be able to get sophisticated about this. And so when we were measuring resident attachment, you will see that it's not just, well, are you happy living here? That's not good enough. And it's not satisfaction. You know, about 5 years ago, mayors started to include in their report cards on their place satisfaction. And they were very excited about that. But you see, the thing is that satisfaction is only one part of the equation of attachment. Satisfaction doesn't predict whether a resident will stay or leave. Instead, it is a combination of these things. How optimistic are you about your community's future? People who are optimistic about the future of their places are more attached to them today than they should be given the facts. So having that forward-thinking idea of this is a place I'm going to want to be in the future matters. That you recommend it, that you feel like when you get on the airplane, do you say, do you say the name of your town or do you say the nearest biggest city? Because you don't want to have to go through, it's kind of away from there. Or are you so excited to talk about your place when you get on a plane that you want to say, this is where I'm from and tell me about that, and you want to do that. The third aspect is the perfect place for you. It's not about the perfect place because there's no perfect spouse and there's no perfect place. But it has to feel like the perfect place to you. That's where we get that sense of belonging because we feel well matched. And are you satisfied? That's in there. It's not enough, but that's in there. And then finally, do you have a sense of pride in your community? Again, every chance you get, do you get out of here? Or do you encourage people to visit you here? Do you encourage to see what more you can do to tell the world about this place or to make it even a better place even? So we found that we could measure these things in people, ask them to rate how they feel about their place around that, and we could get a predictive measure of attachment. What do I mean by that? I mean that this predicted whether people stayed or went. This predicted their engagement in the community. This predicted their satisfaction in their jobs, their willingness to buy a house and start a business, and all of the other economic outcomes associated of when you feel like you're in the place you belong. Now, the challenge with that is that it's important to make this applied science. We need to know, well, what are the things about a community that pull these heartstrings in us? What are the things that make us feel this way? And we studied 12 things about a place. And we found everywhere, all 3 years of the study, whether we were in Detroit or Wichita, the same 3 things mattered the most in driving these feelings. And I'm going to talk about each one in turn. The social offerings, whether there are opportunities for positive social interaction in the community. The aesthetics, do you find the natural and built space pleasing? And lastly, openness. Do you feel like you feel comfortable in your own skin in this place and you think others could too? Could anybody make a life for themselves here if they chose? And when people feel good about these 3 things, above and beyond all the other things we talked about and we asked them about, basic services, safety, leadership, civic engagement. I mean, we asked them about a whole lot of perceptions about their place. These 3 things far and away predicted these feelings. So when people felt good about this, this was higher. Everywhere. Consistently. Each year we studied it, it got a tighter and tighter relationship where one would go up, the other did. I mean, it was amazing. And then finally, because we have to make this stuff meaningful in the real world, we had to have a so what. And so we started looking at, well, what does attachment matter for? If you have a highly attached community, do they get stuff done better? What's going on? And when we did this research in 2008 to 2010, which is when this research happened, and the economy was falling out of places, the thing that we ended up talking the most about was local GDP growth. That where loved places did better economically from a growth perspective. But because like I said, I still have students mining this data, we find out that attachment matters for school dropout. It matters for public health seeking behaviors. It matters for crime and safety. It matters for teenage pregnancy. It matters for a lot of the things that we track on about our place. One of the predictors of those things is how highly attached is that community, as it's defined by these things here. And the thing that my mayors love about this is that unlike civic engagement or social capital or lots of the things that we talk about in community practice, which I think are incredibly important, they can take a long time to build and takes a second to destroy. Attachment seems to work a little bit differently. If you can change public opinion of just one of those things, make it go up a little bit, you see same-year differences in attachment. It's a very nimble idea. Now, of course, the opposite is also true. When people start to not like those things, they immediately start disconnecting, almost immediately, within 12 months. You start to see that disconnection. So let me just briefly talk about each of these things. So social offerings is the #1 thing in 26 cities from Miami to Long Beach, Philadelphia, Detroit, Macon, Charlotte. I mean, they couldn't be any more different as places. The #1 thing that most predicted people being in love where they live is if they loved the social offerings offered by the place. And social offerings is this need that we as humans have. We're back to the human part. We're social beings. We require positive social interaction to thrive. And so we learned from Soul, because it was the #1 thing in all 3 years of the study, that social offerings isn't extra. It's foundational to place. And so we have to be a little more careful about how we think about our social offerings. Now, social offerings is 2 aspects, really. It's the formal things to do in a community, and it's also the informal, the find your own adventure in your community. So when we were talking about me coming here and I saw the things that's going on with the expanded downtown events, the River Walk, the Grand Prix, and the wayfinding signage, maybe you wondered, well, what is that gonna do? Well, what it does is it says you can still have an adventure in our city and not be a part of a big old thing all the time. You can choose your own adventure, and here you go, and here you go, and you can go here and you can go there. And that really kind of matters.